We are very pleased to have with us today Patsy G. Watkins. Professor Watkins is Associate Professor in the Lemke Department of Journalism at the University of Arkansas in Fayetteville. She served as chair of that department for 18 years. Her bachelor's and master's degrees are in journalism from the University of Texas, and her doctorate is in American Studies from the University of Iowa. She joined the Arkansas Journalism Program in 1983 after working in news, magazines, public radio, graphics design, and public relations, as well as serving as a legislative assistant for U.S. congressmen. Professor Watkins' research has led her down many paths, one an examination of war photojournalism, including photo coverage of World War II and U.S. newspaper front-page photo coverage of the first weeks of the U.S.-Iraq War in 2003. She has studied the impact of changing computer technology on the culture of magazine publishing. In 1992, she launched a small press venture which has published 30 poetry chapbooks and short stories. Her recent research interest has been in the history of Arkansas as recorded in photographs, and that's what brings her here to be with us today. She has created an online searchable database of Arkansas historical photographs in major repositories throughout the state, and that is hosted through special collections at the U of A Mullins Library. Today, she is here to discuss two photography projects documenting Arkansas mountaineers during the Great Depression. So please join me in welcoming Professor Patsy Watkins.
Sounds a lot like I can't make up my mind what I really want to do. Well, thank you for coming today. It's really nice to be here. And yes, I'm really interested in photography, and especially old photographs, historical photographs. It seems to me that I look at some of these pictures, especially these photographs, and to me there's kind of a mystery to them. It's as though I want to ask questions of the people who were in the photographs, and what was your life like? What was it like living this way in these houses at this time? And of course we can't do that anymore, but what we can do is and this may sound a little odd, but we can actually ask questions of the photographs themselves by studying them. And we can ask questions about the time that the photographs were taken and who took them and why they took them to try to find out more about the story of photographs. So this particular project has to do with this photograph. This photograph was published in the Morning News one Sunday, and it was a promotion for a photo exhibit that was going to be here at Shiloh. And it just really caught my attention. So I'll give you a couple of minutes to take a look at this photograph and to read the captions. Read the caption, rather. If the type's not large enough for you, let me know and I'll read it. But it was looking at this photograph, reading this caption, that just really involved me, I think almost emotionally, in this photograph, and trying to understand something about this life. And so I came over here to Shiloh and met with Marie and looked at the collection of photographs that this one came from. Here's another example of photographs from this collection. It's actually called the Katie Mccoy collection, and there are about 100 photographs in it. These are snapshot size, about 2 by 3 inches or so, with extensive captions that tell you something about the content of the photograph, something about the people in them. Here's another one. These were taken in 1935, and they were taken in Boone County, Newton County, and Washington County. Katie Mccoy photograph collection, about 100 snapshots, 1935. The subjects in these photographs, according to the captions, were recipients of federal relief assistance. Remember, this was in the middle of the Depression, and Arkansas, as being one of the states in the South, suffered I guess, more than other states in the Union, because the agriculture crisis hit the South so intensely. And, of course, Arkansas being there was among the states that really was hit hard. So these people you see in these photographs were relief clients. Yeah, so this is the house where these people lived. And that term, Ozark mountaineers, I'd like to explain that too. That actually came from some of the captions that I've seen of these photographs. I didn't come up with that myself. That was a term used to refer to these folks. So they lived up in the mountains, up in the Ozark Hills, and these were the kinds of homes that they had. So this collection of about 100 photographs with extensive captions was discovered in an album in an attic, house belonging to the niece of a couple from Harrison, Arkansas, named Ernest and Opal Nicholson. Now, the captions actually bear some, they tell us a little bit about, or they connect us a little bit to Ernest and Opal Nicholson. So we know that in addition to the fact that they were found in the attic, the photographs were found in the attic of a relative after both of the Nicholsons had died, the captions help us connect these photographs to the Nicholsons. So the photographs presumably connected to them, and as I said, they lived in Harrison, Arkansas in the 30s and were actually raised there. So the questions, though, become, for those of us who are, really want to look at historical photographs carefully, who took these photographs? Can we just assume that the Nicholsons took them? Who actually took them? And then the question, why were they taken? Which is sometimes harder to answer. There's no clue on the photographs or with the photographs as to who took them or why they were taken. We just simply have this collection. Wonderful pictures, wonderful captions. So the job that I took on was trying to find out for sure who took them and then, of course, why they were taken. Well, the research that has been done by folks here at Shiloh and some that I have done really points to Ernest Nicholson as being the photographer. Now, why should that be? Well, what we found out is that Mr. Nicholson, during the 30s, was employed by the federal government as a county relief caseworker working out of Harrison. He had been a teacher. He had been the superintendent of a small school system. He had been a Presbyterian minister who spoke at various churches, not any one particular one. In the mid-30s, he was in his early 30s. And he later, in the late 40s, early 50s, he served in the Arkansas legislature as a senator, and then also was a very successful businessman in Harrison. But during the mid-30s, he was like a lot of other people. He'd lost his job. And we know from federal employment records that he was able to get this position as a county relief caseworker, getting paid, I think it was something like $125 a week, or maybe a month, more likely a month. Now, furthermore, if you read the captions carefully, you see that they do tend to refer to caseworkers occasionally in the area. And what caseworkers did during this time was to monitor the local people who were receiving federal relief assistance. Federal relief funds were, of course, granted by the federal government, and Arkansas got a pretty good bit because it was in such dire straits, but they were administered by local county committees. So the local county, members of the local county committee made the decisions about who got the relief funds. And so people like Mr. Nicholson, who was a caseworker, would go out up into the hills and visit the relief clients to see how they were using their relief, if they were using it responsibly, and make make some determination about whether they should continue receiving relief. So this was a pretty important job. So, but I do want to make this point, though, that essentially what Mr. Nicholson and the county committee were doing is they were determining whether these people who, as you have seen, were in the depths of poverty were actually worthy of getting the assistance that they were getting. This was their job. So, having determined that more than likely it was Mr. Nicholson who took the photographs, his wife was not employed by the federal government. She was not a caseworker. There are no records of her being employed, just him. So more than likely it was Mr. Nicholson. Why were the photographs taken? Well, there's really no conclusive answer. If you look through these photographs, I think you can reasonably speculate that these photographs may have been put together as some kind of report, maybe for the county committee to look at in making their decisions about relief support possibility. I think that for two reasons. The captions, in the way they're written, do suggest that they're making a report. There's kind of a report feel to them in the way and the kind of information that's provided. They do assess relief clients. Also, there is the photos have a similarity of content, and also in the way that they're shot, the way they're composed. So they do kind of suggest that there's some sort of documentation that's going on here. And this particular photograph, which is among the hundreds, is I believe the caption for this one says something like, "This is the kind of area where they had to get out of their car and start going up into the hills, and they would have to climb sometimes 2 or 3 miles to get to some relief client's house." So it's pretty rugged territory. So let's look at this caption and this photograph and think about it in terms of, is this a report? Could this be a report given to a committee making a decision about relief? Okay, so this is a client's new home. This is the new home of Frank Ramey. Since the picture was made, Mr. Ramey has put in windows, because we don't see any here. We just see the door with no door on it, and he has the house well screened. The windows and the screen wire was bought, and I should say that all of these captions I've typed here just as they are. So the windows and the screen wire were bought with the special order, which was issued from the special fund for relief clients. So when I look at this picture, I think, okay, it must be spring, it must be summer, perhaps. What would it be like to live in a house like this up in the hills of Arkansas in the middle of summer with no screens? But what you're going to see in other pictures that I show you is that people are often posed in standing like this in a line in front of their houses. And they're often posed just like this in kind of a stair-step fashion so that you can see what the house looks like, you can see what the people look like. Here's another one. And in this one, which is a bit longer caption about newcomers, you can scan over this and see that this family came from Illinois a few years before this photograph was taken and actually paid $2,000 for the land, sight unseen, in Arkansas. So the underscored lines here make up what I consider to be a report. He has turned his attention to milk goats. He's now milking 35 head. We are encouraging him in this new undertaking and buying a goat from him now and then for other clients who may have babies and no milk. We believe this may be valuable for other clients. It does sound like a report, doesn't it? And there's a family standing in front of their house in order. You don't always see men in the photographs. Perhaps they're more often out working in the field, but you you always see, of course, women, a mother and children in these photographs. This is one that gives a little more negative picture of the folks in the photograph, looking for something easy. So these people came from Franklin County, came to Newton County to get an easy living, okay, and had to come to the relief to get it. And so he goes on to say, you can see the disappointed look on their faces. It was not as easy as they thought it was going to be. And so I'm assuming that it was Mr. Nicholson who wrote these captions. He does get a little, not really sarcastic, but he does make some kind of insinuations like that from time to time, which makes his captions really interesting to read. Now, having seen a few of the captions, look at the photographs a little more closely. This photograph is, of course, these women, the children. This is the grandmother, the mother, 3 children standing in front of their house. They do have a screen on the door, and it looks like they've got covering on the windows. And this looks like the bed springs. Interesting, leaning against the wall here. And then, of course, here's the Ramis, as you have seen. So if you look at the content of the photographs, you see a certain kind of approach. So you get to see, again, something about the houses and the way people were living. Looking a little more closely now at these 2 photographs, you start to study their clothing, because these pictures give you that kind of information too. So you can see the condition of their clothes. You can see that in most pictures, not so easily in this one, but clearly in this one, that the younger children are barefoot, older children wear shoes, and so do the adults. And you can certainly compare the quality of the condition of the clothing between these 2 families. This is another one of my favorites. Hardworking women. I look at this photograph and I think of my aunts. I have 4 aunts who were raised in the 20s and 30s in Central Texas, and my grandfather lost the farm in the Depression, and so for some reason I really relate to this photograph. These hardworking women have just quit hoeing corn and cleaned up for this photograph. So take a look at them. See how they're dressed. See how they're sitting in ways that suggest to me that they are trying to be proper. They have a sense of what it's like to be appropriate, to sit appropriately. Hands in their laps, and this woman and this woman too, I believe, are both barefoot. And this woman, it's to me, it looks like she's sort of tucking her feet away, like she wants to hide them. This comment is one example of several that you see in the captions, commenting on children in the photographs and their likely future. So he doesn't give much hope for these children. In looking at these photographs, and you notice that they're all shot a certain way, that people are always a certain distance from the camera. They're always posed a certain way. They hold very still. Got me to thinking about, well, what kind of equipment, camera equipment, might Mr. Nicholson have used? It needs to be something very lightweight and portable, so that he could carry it, climbing around up in the hills. And it needs to be something really cheap. Well, if you're doing a lot of research on Kodak cameras, because frankly, there were so many models of Kodaks. It's just amazing. But this one fits the bill, the closest. A Kodak Brownie box camera number 2, produced from 1907 to 1936, very popular, 1.2 million, produced before 1921, cheap, $2 to $3 each. If the photographs were taken in 1935, then this camera would have been available. He may have even had it for some time. These cameras held rolls of film that had 8 frames on them. So more than likely, when he took these pictures, he took one shot. And so people had to be very carefully posed. The lighting had to be exactly right because there was only one chance. If you've only got 8 frames, it's not like you've got that digital camera and you're out there just firing off frames. You've just got one chance because every frame is precious. You may all have worked or used these Brownie cameras at some point. Some of the interesting things about them is that it's a fixed focus. They're very basic. You can only get your image in focus if you stand a certain distance from it. If you get any further away or any closer, it's going to start going out of focus. So not a lot of flexibility there. There's a fixed shutter speed, which means that your subjects have to hold still, and you have to have the right kind of light. The film is advanced by a manual winder, so it takes a little bit of time to do that. The viewfinder, the most awkward thing is that the viewfinder is on top of the camera, so you have to hold it about waist high and look down into it. You don't look directly at your subject. So that's a little awkward. The framing mechanism in the camera was not accurate. So if you had objects around the edge of the frame, they could be there or not when you get the picture back. So you might tend to always put things, important objects, toward the center of the picture. Because of that, they also made a loud click when you press the shutter. And also instructions for these cameras said that when you take a picture, don't breathe. Take a breath, hold your breath, and snap the shutter, because if you breathe, you're going to likely move the camera and you'll get a blurry image. The snapshots that this camera produces are the exact size of the pictures in this collection. That's important because out of so many Kodak cameras, many of them produce different sizes, different dimensions of photographs. Now, this is something very curious. Coincidentally, that same year, 1935, there were 2 photographers from the federal government who were also up in the Ozark Hills in Washington, Boone, and Newton counties, Arthur Rothstein and Ben Shahn. And they were up there taking photographs for a federal project. This particular shot is by Rothstein, and this is the extent of the caption, wife and child of sharecropper in Washington County, done in August 1935. And the program was called the Farm Security Administration, which you may be familiar with. The Farm Security Administration photography project, as it came to be known later, had 2 major goals. One was to document the impact of the Depression on Americans, primarily in the rural South, because that, of course, is where the problems were the worst. But it also had the goal of persuading taxpayers to support Roosevelt's poverty relief programs. The idea was to take these photographs of people who were suffering these very deprived conditions and make them available to newspapers, magazines, other federal offices, exhibits, and to try to generate support from Americans for Roosevelt's projects, which, of course, many of them were very controversial. So this was a very important project. This photograph was taken in Boone County, and it's the family of a resettlement administration client, which was, of course, a form of federal relief. This is taken by Ben Shahn, and I'm sure you're noticing immediately the difference in the photographs between the ones that Mr. Nicholson took. So this one is another by Shahn. Their strategy was that they wanted to take photographs that would involve people emotionally, that would get them caught up in the lives of the people in the photographs. and that would present these folks as being worthy of taxpayer support. I may be repeating that, but that was so key to the FSA photography project. It was important to show people who were paying taxes and Congress that folks were really needed support and they were worthy of it. Okay, I use a lot of Ben Shah's photographs. He's a quite remarkable photographer, but they took about 100 pictures. They were not traveling together. They traveled separately. For both of them, they were East Coast background. Actually, Ben Shah came from Europe. They had no experience in the South. This was their first time to come south, first time to come to Arkansas. They both had a background in art and in photography. This photograph is fairly famous. It's been reprinted a number of times. Ozark Mountaineers. Again, their portrayal, different from the Nicholson photographs. These are candid shots for the most part. They're not posed. People are just caught unaware. The image quality is usually very good. It's usually very sharp, really well lighted. You can see a lot of detail. You can see also that they get a lot closer to the subject. And the composition, that is the position of subjects within the picture frame. Whereas Nicholson's photographs frequently have people in the center. You see this art background coming forth here and moving people around, putting them off center, maybe framing them in front of a dark background. This is the same man. And I include this one out of all of Sean's photographs because it does have a lot of that artistic eye here. It's got this kind of off-center focus on the main subject, and he's also framed in this darkened doorway. And there are also all these horizontal lines crossing with vertical lines here. So you have the vertical lines of the doorway, the vertical lines of his overalls and the way his arms are hanging, the head of the mule, the leg of the mule, and what a wonderful moment to have the mule turn its head and he snaps the photograph. That's great. So you almost get this kind of relationship here between the mule and his owner. So what kind of camera were they using? Well, of course, Rothstein and Sean had some of the latest equipment. They had Leicas, which were, of course, made in Germany, first made in 1925, and had been adopted by photojournalists very quickly because these cameras were very lightweight. You looked through the shutter or through the viewfinder here to take the photograph. So you were looking directly at your subject. If you've ever held a Leica, taken a photograph with a Leica, they're really wonderful. They're very well weighted, and when you snap the shutter, there's no sound. So you can take a candid shot, and your subject won't be aware necessarily that you've taken a picture because they won't hear that click. They had fast shutter speeds, rapid film advance, focus control, so the photographer could stop action, could snap a picture without subject knowing it, could shoot under varying light conditions, could take close-ups and long shots, and even in 1935, they had rolls of film with 36 frames. So when these two photographers shot their photographs, they might take 2 or 3 or 4 images of the same situation because they had a little more flexibility. So I'm winding down here now. The fact that there were these 2 sets of photographs made of basically the same group of people, same area, same year, same conditions. It's just fascinating to me. And after looking at them, thinking about them, they basically had similar goals: to present the very poor, the destitute, affected by the Depression, to others who would make decisions about relief assistance for them. Basically, to document that they were worthy of support. And I think that that makes these two collections of special interest and very singular. I want to give special thanks to Shiloh here for the use of this collection, and of course acknowledge the Katie Mccoy collection and the Farm Security Administration, which is Farm Security Administration photography collection, which is online at the Library of Congress website, and is very easily accessible. And if you wanted to look for more photographs of Arkansas, there are roughly 1,000 photographs of Arkansas in this collection. The collection is about 250,000 photographs from around the country. You can search the Arkansas photographs. There's a geographical search index. So you can go to Arkansas and you can search certain counties to look for photographs. So it's a great resource.